your chairman right now. And we are so happy that you taken the time to join us either through Zoom or YouTube. This time, we'll do the roll call. Captain, you gonna do it or will Wanda do it? Does Wanda have the listing?
I have a list.
Okay. Okay, Captain McFadden is gonna do the roll call for us.
Frank Walsh. Ryan Davis.
Here.
Juan.
Here.
Sarah Mack. Paul.
Here.
George Palmer. Emily Broom.
She's on.
Emily's
Present.
on.
I'm here.
Jack Handigan. Doris Grant.
So,
Becca White. Moyu. Here. Jerome Harris. Eduardo Curry. And Marisol Bailey.
Okay, and Jerry Harris and Doris Grant may join us later. They did notify me that they needed to join on by Zoom. At present, of course, we do not have a quorum. And I did want to ask some point if we want to, the members who are on, the CPAC members who are on, do you want to try the hybrid or in-person again, or go back to us doing all meetings virtually until a later time? Emily, since you're up on the screen, you want to unmute and tell us what you feel about that?
I prefer virtual or hybrid.
Okay. If there were hybrid, would there be times that you would come, or it would be more virtual for you?
For me, more virtual, but just in terms of my work schedule and being home. But if I could come in person, I would.
Okay, thank you. Ryan, you're on.
Yeah, I would have been there. I would have been there in person if it went for other circumstances, but you know, I'm okay either way. I'll show up on time most of the time, or in person on time. So,
Okay, thank you. Moyu?
Hybrid. Since the time is like way after school, I think I'll be able to come in person.
Okay, all right. And Paul?
yeah, I can always be in person, but if we have to do it by Zoom, I'm okay. I tend to defer to the staff. And it's easier for them too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The reason why I asked that, I will take as an action item to contact each of the other council members who are not here tonight, so that I can ask the same question. I'll share that information with the rest of the council members, because we do involve the police department in our meetings, and I'm quite sure it would be even more convenient for them that once they got off for the day, they could really be off for the day and connect with us via Zoom. So please stay tuned. When we have the next meeting, the decision will probably be on that agenda. If I don't send it, I get it sent out to you, communicated prior to that time. As a reminder, our guidelines do not say that the meetings have to be in person. It's silent. It doesn't address location for meetings. And participation and activity is really more what's called upon, as opposed to whether you're in person looking at each other, or if you're on Zoom looking at each other square. So please stay tuned for more information in that regard. Thank you so very much. The other item I wanted to share, if you look on the agenda, you see that Councilman Hack Ezel has had to tender his resignation from the council. I've talked with him, and he did say that he would be willing to work on some focus things if we had any things of that sort. But unfortunately, he is bowing out from continuing to work on the session, on the council. So, Steve, Mr. Rublin, we're gonna have, I don't think he's counted in your number of 4, I think you said? We're down 4 members?
Right.
Okay,
He is counted now.
he is counted in the 4?
Come down.
Okay, okay. So he is counted in the 4 that you and I were talking about, Steve,
So we have 14 in need.
Yes.
correct?
We started that process, have we notified?
Not yet. Councilwoman Grant is texting to get the Zoom link. So just sent that to her. And okay, any questions or any additions regarding membership since we're under roll call? Any? Okay, thank you. Next we have approval of the minutes, but before we do that, we do have one person, Captain McFadden, you said that signed up to speak?
Yes, Rita, she's on Zoom.
Okay,
And Rita, we will give you approximately 2 minutes as our normal for comments from the public. So you can go ahead and speak whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I do have a question, though. I saw this committee online, and I'm not sure what exactly this committee does. I have issues with the police and failing to enforce a bunch of ordinances against some groups while being overly aggressive enforcing an ordinance against another group. Is this a matter that your group would discuss or handle, or?
Can you be more specific on which ordinances or what you're?
It's specifically, and the concern is this is a little one. This is regarding the First Amendment ordinances, something that was passed last year in July as an emergency to get these ordinances passed. And again, I say these infractions, I guess, are relatively minor. But when I see police that are unaware of the law or refuse to enforce the law or refuse to even discuss these infractions with us, I get very concerned on what happens when there's bigger issues that the police have to tackle. I'll just tell you. So they passed this First Amendment ordinance last July 29th, 2021, and I urge any of you to please go back and watch that meeting on July 29, 2021. Last summer, police used that new law to arrest some of my Black friends, and it not only cost them emotional trauma, but thousands of dollars in legal fees, only to see these charges eventually dropped. There's a group that comes to the Battery every single weekend to fly their oversized Confederate flag off the bed of a pickup truck. Been doing this every weekend. They started this after Dylan Roof murdered the 9 Black people just a mile up the street at Mother Emanuel. As this has been an ongoing event every single weekend, I'm certain that they have received the overwhelming majority of all permits issued by Charleston Police. And though we continue to point out a multitude of violations of Sydney ordinances by this group, police not only continue to issue permits, but they repeatedly refuse to enforce the violations, often demonstrating they either have no knowledge of the ordinance or just plain refuse to hold this group accountable. Meanwhile, police regularly continue to threaten to arrest those who stand against this group if they dare walk into a 6-acre White Point Gardens across the street.
Rita, this is Captain McFadden. I've noted your complaints, and we will have a contact you in the future. Okay, I have your phone number, so I've noted your complaints.
Can I give you just the code numbers that I'm sharing are in violation for you? For instance, 2538.
You've quoted the ordinance, and I think we're all familiar with it. And I'll have a commander reach out to you. I have your phone number, and I've documented your complaints. Okay.
Okay, so you don't even care which specific laws this group continues to break over and over and over and over and over again.
I think you've mentioned the law that's been violated, or that you think that is being broken. Ordinance. You mentioned that, correct?
I mentioned it's the First Amendment ordinance. However, it's a lengthy ordinance.
Okay.
And if you give me the opportunity, I can give you the specifics here.
Right,
within
correct, but in
30
keeping
seconds.
with what we usually do with this council, I gave you about minutes and now we're going on 4. So I've documented your complaints and I'll have the commander contact you in the future, okay?
And Rita,
Okay,
this is the chairman of the council. Yes.
and your name,
Can you hear me?
yes, I can. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. You had a question about the purpose of this committee. I want to my email address and ask that you do 2 things with it, if you don't mind. Please email me your concern that you started talking about. I know you've run out of time, because
Yes,
we
ma'am.
do, Captain McFadden is correct that we have to adhere to the timing. Unfortunately, because we are utilizing some other means to be able to communicate at this time. But if you would
I
please email me at T as in Tom, B as in boy, F as in Frank, IEL, D as in David, ING, at yahoo.com. Now I have a CPAC email address, but that yahoo.com comes right to my telephone.
Okay. And it's
And
TB
Don't
Fielding,
mind. Say it once more, Rita.
TB Fielding at yahoo.com.
Correct. And when I
Your name
receive,
again?
when I receive it, I'll send you an email saying received and thank you. And I will then
And-
share with you the sections out of the guidelines so that you would see and tell you where you can go to get read the guidelines on the Citizens Police Advisory Council. Okay?
Okay, very good. And I'm sorry, your name again, I didn't catch. Fielding.
Twan Fielding. Mhm. Thank you very
Thank
much
you
for
so-
taking the time to
I
register to talk.
appreciate it too. Yep. Stay safe, y'all.
Yeah, you too. Thanks again. You're welcome to stay on for the rest of the meeting, though. It looks like she may have disconnected, right? Okay, and once I get the email, I'll send it to the entire council so that everybody can really get a full gist of what she's talking about. And I'll make sure that I copy Deputy Chief Walker and Captain McFadden, so you know what's happening, okay? Thank you very much. Okay, now we're down to our approval of the minutes. Hopefully, everyone got a chance to review the minutes. Remember, our previous meeting had to be canceled due to the lack of a quorum. And we were trying to move that date, but rather than move the date, we just, because of technological challenges as well, we are meeting today. So thank you all for coming. Those of you who are here, and hopefully we'll get a couple more, because I think Steve, we need to have 9, right?
We need to have
You
8.
need
8, okay.
Okay. 7.
Yeah, and we only have 7 now. So with that in mind, we recognize we won't be able to vote on our minutes. We'll have to defer that item to the October meeting. If you have any questions about anything that's in the minutes, and I realize that has been quite some time now, 4 months ago. So if you have any questions though, please send me an email, email Paul and me, and then we'll try to address it prior to the October meeting, so you'll be clear for us to be able to do the minutes from that meeting. I do not want to, I'm willing to listen to what your feeling is on it. 7 members of the council who are present. We are down 1 member to be able to reach quorum, but there's a wealth of information that we need to share. Even if we just hear it and review it, I think it's worth the time since 7 of us have been able to join on for tonight. I think we need to take the time to hear. Councilman Harris, your hand is raised. Councilman Harris, Jerry, your hand is raised, but you're muted. Will you please unmute to speak?
Thank you. Madam Chair, I just wanted to note that I was able to sign in. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, we saw you. Yeah, we had we admitted it. Thank you very much. Well, while we're on you, let's ask you, what is your feeling about hearing the rest of the information of the agenda? Because we pushed this one meeting already. Jerry, can you hear me?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I think the information is valuable, particularly the update on the language in the GO5 and the status of search for the procedural justice person. So I think that's some critical stuff. Yeah, I would suggest that we go ahead and get the
Okay.
information.
Okay, thank you. Ryan, Councilman Davis, Ryan Davis.
Yeah, I agree with Jerry. Absolutely.
Okay. And because we do not have a quorum, I am prohibited from having a motion and taking a vote. So I'm going one by one to ask you your preference. So thank you for indulging me at this time. Councilwoman Grant, Doris?
I agree. We can receive the presentation as information.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Broome, Emily? Emily, you're muted.
I agree. We can receive the information.
Okay, thank you. And here we have present Mayu and Paul. Mayu, what do you think?
I agree.
You agree, Paul?
Steve, please.
Okay, so then we will proceed with the information and CPD, thank you very much for your indulgence and your understanding with us with our abbreviated schedule and lack of quorum. So let us move on then to the communication subcommittee. Realizing that the information that is shared, we will not be taking any votes. We'll just be sharing information. Paul Tamburino, Councilman Tamburino.
So good evening. As I sent all council members copies of our minutes and a recap, you all can read that, so I don't need to rehash too much of that. The major point being, we're going to have an upcoming session for the public again. This is going to revolve around the Charleston Police Department's de-escalation procedures and how they want to communicate that. So we've got the date and time published. The only other piece that we had pending for CPAC is just a little question came out of our subcommittee, is whether the communications subcommittee could review any of the general orders as they relate to the public affairs and public information, since those typically fall along the lines of what we do. That's my report, Madam Chair. If anybody's got any questions.
So the next session is good. Would you share what the title of that?
Let me pull it up.
Okay. Well, we can run through it when we get to the end.
Sure.
Just want anybody who's listening on YouTube to be able to know what that subject matter is going to be. Thank you. Any questions for Councilman Tamburino?
It is September. It's scheduled for, it's scheduled for September 20th from 7 p.m. to 7:45. And the name of it is the CPAC Educational Series De-Escalation. We haven't come up with a more formal name for our output. We're having an upcoming meeting to discuss the details, and we'll formulate, a public release for that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions from anyone? Okay. Councilman Harris will come now with the.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure.
The policy committee met in July. I missed a meeting. We did receive a report from Captain Cretella updating us on the language in the GO5. Is Captain Cretella in the building?
He wasn't available tonight, so he's not here.
Okay, so we will circulate that information. There is a specific language inserted that identifies the CPAC as having a role, commenting, having been informed by the department when they are producing and revising or updating new general directives and general orders, as well as once they have been drafted. So that will be inserted. The policy review committee also identified at its May meeting the following priorities for review of policies. They include recruitment, selection of officers, officer conduct, which has already been circulated and comments submitted by Paul and Doris, lethal and less than lethal and lethal weapon utilization, community-oriented policing, and Paul has already mentioned the public information general order as priority to be reviewed. We also noted that the juvenile operations, which had been identified in 2021 as a priority, has been issued, and we have to have that to review. Other updates as it relates to matters of the assessment, third-party assessment of the racial bias audit and the filling of the procedural justice position are pending reports from the department. That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, may I make a comment?
Thank you.
May I make a comment?
Sir.
Okay, so I've sent out a copy. What Jerry referenced was the
That's what I was about to
PowerPoint
mention.
presentation. I've recirculated. What I would ask each of you to do, all right, and this is an ask, is when Captain Cretella or Jerry or somebody sends us policies and procedures and things like that to review, I would ask each one of you, whether you have an actual comment or not, at least reply out of respect for them to show that you've taken the time, because they put a lot of time, and you can say it's a humorous, but they're doing their job, and it's a lot of work to put some of these presentations together. So at least you're showing that you've read it, but for us to be silent and him not getting any replies back, that's problematic, because we're encouraging these police officers to be involved with us. We've got to show them our return involvement, and we've all agreed to do this. So please just look them over. It's not time consuming. Go in there, hit a reply. You don't have to do reply to all. Hit a reply, give your feedback, or just say great job if you have no feedback.
And I do believe, thank you, Councilman Tamburino. I did place that in the email when I sent the directive before. I asked that even if it's a negative reply, that you provide that, as so that everyone knows that you got a chance to review it. Again, you don't have to send it to the entire council. I was happy to have seen what you, Councilman Tamburino, and Councilwoman Doris Grant, as well as Councilman Harris submitted for, I think it was General Order 5, because there were two things that I was getting ready to send a comment on, but I sent back to Captain Cretella and told him that since you all had already done it, I didn't need to send that again. So please keep that in mind. And Councilman Tamburino sent today the policy subcommittee's report out to everyone that's dated July 12th, that you actually would have received probably during our July meeting that we were going to have. So please take our June meeting. Please take a look at those slides that came out. If you have any questions, please email your questions to Councilman Harris, since the Policy and Procedures Committee will be meeting prior to our next meeting, and they'll be able to discuss it then. Also, Councilman Harris, thank you for your conversation with me earlier today, where we're going to roll the traffic stop issue that was being worked into the Policy and Procedures Committee. I'm asking, though, that those of us who are not a member of a subcommittee, please reach out to Councilman Harris and join that committee, and so he can have additional input from across the city of Charleston that we can provide. Someone's wants to raise their hand, or is that?
That's sad to do.
Okay. I don't know which one it is. Okay. So please make sure that you do that. I will check, and Councilman Harris, if you have not heard from anyone else joining the Policy and Procedure Committee within the next 2 weeks, please kindly send me an email or a text to let me know, and so I can reach out to our members and then subsequently talk with Steve Rumelin regarding our membership.
Certainly will, Madam Chair.
Thank you, appreciate that. Any questions for Councilman Harris? Okay, then that takes us to our updates. there was a presentation on electronic monitoring that Lieutenant King did, and it was really a good presentation. And we wanted everyone to get a chance to see it. Fortunately, this is on YouTube as well, so we do realize that folks can go back to YouTube to take a look if they missed tonight's actual meeting as it's occurring. So we'll now have the presentation on electronic monitoring.
Thank you. I'm gonna stand here because if I stand here, I'm gonna flop it back.
Gotcha,
All right,
gotcha.
fair
Well, we
enough.
just want to make sure that the mic picks you up. Thank you very much for your time.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm Heath King, Lieutenant with the city, 25 years. I'm the West Ashley Commander, Team 4. So I went to a command school last year in Charlotte, North Carolina, Mecklenburg PD, and they have a robust electronic monitoring program. They monitor about 600 offenders. It's all court ordered, obviously, and I kind of, we're always looking at different innovations and different ideas to tackle crime in general, but violent crime in particular. Violent crime is obviously our number one goal is reduction in violent crime. So trying to think about electronic monitoring and how we can use that towards violent crime. So electronic monitoring is ankle monitoring. If you're not familiar, I'm going to refer to it as EM throughout the presentation. So EM's been around since the 1970s. It's been used pretty normally since the 1970s. Basically, the way it works is somebody gets arrested. A judge has the ability to order as part of a court order electronic monitoring, either in lieu of a bond, which could be a PR bond, which means they get out on their own recognizance for free, or part of a surety bond. So if you look at and read some data on electronic monitoring, when it's used kind of indiscriminately, if you will, in court, meaning the judges in their court, they're putting people who are shoplifters, people who are DUI offenders, people who steal cars. They're kind of a lot of judges kind of indiscriminately put people on monitoring. And if you look at the data, the idea for monitoring is to stop people from reoffending and to have them come to court. Now, if you look at some of the data from the previous research that EM is used in that capacity, it says it's relatively ineffective. I completely agree with that. Okay, we're not looking to use it like that. So a lot of those people probably don't need to have a monitor on. They're going to come to court, most of them. You're going to hear me say one thing throughout this the whole time. The people that we're targeting for this electronic monitoring program are repeat violent offenders. We'll say it again, and we'll say it 10 times in the presentation. We're targeting a specific group of people, repeat violent offenders, and nobody else. The chief has made comments. You probably heard this in any kind of presentation from a command member that if, in any city, in any state, if we could arrest, our top 30 violent offenders and get them in jail, we could probably drop the crime rate by 50%. Okay, that's a pretty accurate statement. Okay, there's a little exaggeration there, but you get the point. Okay, so we want to target those specifically causing violence and repeatedly causing violence in our city. Let's look at, you got slide one. Okay, first and foremost, one of the drawbacks to EM is across the nation is they call it a debtor's prison. And in South Carolina, it's specifically used by bond. So you go to court, you get a judge orders a monitor on you, and you're going to have to pay the bondsman to use the monitor to get you out. It's usually about $400 a month. So if you got two guys on the same path and they are the same charges, they both ordered them on monitoring, and one of them can't afford to get out, but the other one can, well, it's not really fair. Okay, so we're not going to charge anybody. The city's going to eat the cost. I've applied for a grant with the DOJ to fund for 5 years. But council is pretty on board with this, and I think they're probably going to fund this, hopefully, as long as we need it. This is a pilot program, and what that means is we're basically running a test for till at least the end of the year. I was trying to get up and running in June, but we just had some I don't want to say drawbacks, but the The vendor side of it has had some tech issues that we didn't want to start out yet. They're building something out for us specifically, and I'll touch on that here in a minute. So no cost to the offender. That's a huge deal as far as the defense side of this. As well, you're just gonna be causing the same problems as everybody else. No, we're paying for this. All right. So selection. I'm going to have a 2-person unit. They're already in training right now. Their job when they come in the morning is they will be going through all the arrests throughout the night from last night until the morning. These folks that are going to bond hearing at 2 o'clock today to see the judge, and they're going to be going into their background. They're looking to see if they're violent repeat offenders. Are they out on bond for something else now? And we've also got what are called risk assessments. We're working with a group called the CJCC, which is the Charleston Criminal Justice Coordinating Council for Charleston, and they have what's called a CPRA, which is a Charleston Pretrial Risk Assessment Instrument. And the idea behind that document is you put in data on the person's age, whether or not they're on probation, with their current charge, what kind of charges they've had in the past, and it will give them like an assessment score 1 through 4. 1 through 2 is less likely to receive, 3 reoffend, and 3 through 4 is more likely to reoffend. Okay, we have the ability to harness that document, and we're also having another company build us one, which is whether or not somebody is likely to reoffend within a year in a violent capacity. So we're trying to cover all our bases selection-wise, but we're going to have all this data, we're going to gather it, and it's up to us to present this to the judge if we find somebody that we want. So it's up to the judge completely to decide if the monitor is going to be put on, but we're going to make the argument for certain folks that they need to be on a monitor. So if the judge were to grant that, they're going to order some stipulations. We're going to ask that anybody that's on a monitor will be home. This says 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. It's going to be probably 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. If they had offended inside one of our city housing locations, they're going to be on ban and trespass notice from that location, so they can't go in there and continue to cause problems. So they would have the ankle monitor put on when they are able to bond out. And we're also, this is not us trying to empty the jails. All these folks that we're asking about, we think they should be in jail. But the problem is we have too many judges that are letting people out when they should still be in jail because they're violent folks. So those folks that end up getting up to $100,000 bond, they'll sit in jail for a month or two, then they'll go for what's called a bond reconsideration hearing, and the judge will usually drop that to a lower rate, and the person can get out. We want monitors on those folks because we know they're going to get out. So when it's time for them to get out, our officers will go to the jail and strap the monitor on them, go through all the myriad of paperwork explaining to them what their stipulations are that were ordered by the judge and not us. Basically the officers have like a caseload. I've also reached out and talked to 2 different employment agencies. One of them is called Turn 90 and the other one's called Second Chance Jobs. They employ folks with a checkered past and even violent folks. And we're going to offer them the ability to reach out with documentation to try and get them some stable employment. We want folks to succeed on this because people on a monitor, they can do 3 things. Okay. They can commit a violation and we can know right away that it's going to happen. I'm going to get to the next slide on that. And they're going to go back to jail. They can cut the ankle monitor off and we're immediately going to know about it and going to get a bench warrant for them and go look for them. Or they can participate and, graduate the program, if you will, because after 120 days, we will review each case that every person we put a monitor on. And if it's shown that, they have consistently cooperated, not been a problem, that's 4 months. So they could, hopefully their lives have stabilized a little bit. We will ask the judge to remove that monitor. So we'll have that freed up for somebody else. So while they're out and about, they will have to be home at night, but during the daytime, this is what that company's building out for us. It's a very pioneering, innovative program, again, targeting violent folks. So while they're out and about, we want them to be employed. But that's going to be up to the judge if they have to be employed. If not, then they have to be home. Judge will work all that out. But while they're out, our calls for service, our criminal calls for service are fed from the central dispatch center to us and to the vendor, which is BI, which is the largest electronic monitoring entity in the country. And so every 30 minutes, that says 15, but it's every 30 minutes, it's cross-referenced with offender data. So if a call for service goes out with a shooting or a robbery or a rape, we'll know within 30 minutes if any of our folks were involved, if they have their monitor on. And when I say on, it's got to be charged, which is obviously a violation if it's not charged, or if they cut it, we're going to know, be looking for them right away. But this cross-reference thing is going to tell us, okay, while they're out and about, are they doing anything they shouldn't be doing? So if it's deemed that they are, we get a hit. We don't immediately go out and just put handcuffs on somebody, okay? We have to investigate. I've got to validate what that call for service was. I've got to make sure that my guy just wasn't in a car going up the street when something else happened. We'll go through all those motions and figure out if our client was involved in any of the activity. And if he was, we'll address it. Everything's going back to the judge. And another thing that's very, very important is that if somebody violates, they don't come home one night, or they don't charge their battery, our officers will be hounding them to get this done. But we're not going to just go slap handcuffs on somebody. Okay, we can't do that. We're kind of like the hall monitor, if you will, no pun intended. Somebody's running in the hallway, they go tell the principal. That's what we do. We take the data. They don't come home one night. We go right to the judge with all the data that shows that they weren't there and that what their court order says. We take it to the judge. You go, look, he's not doing anything you're supposed to be doing. We want him put back in jail. So we want them to cooperate, but they need to do what they're supposed to do according to the judge's orders. Next slide for me. So I mentioned the 120-day review. So if somebody does violate, they don't come home, even one night in a row, because they can't, if they're home 10 minutes late, we're going to be on them. You can't be doing this. They're home. They're probably not going to try and get them arrested for the second time. But, if it's a continued pattern, we'll get them put back in jail because they're not cooperating. But when we do a violation package, it's going to go to the judge, the solicitor's office, defense attorney, and the bonding company who holds the bond. All right. That way, everybody involved in that case knows this guy's not cooperating. And if the judge elects not to revoke him, then all these other folks are on the hook, especially the bonding company. The bonding company can't get their client under control, and we end up having to arrest them on the judge's order. The bonding company will lose the bond they posted for that party. So they have a vested interest to make sure that this person is either doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they snatch them up and put them in jail. Next one. So November 2020 to November 2021, I had all of our murder and attempted murder charges or offenders that were charged with each of those offenses pulled. There was 30 of them, okay? It's probably a little hard to follow on this, but you look back around and watch it, it's a little more digestible. 30 people, all right? 14 of that 30 were out on bond for some kind of felony charge. So theoretically, if my monitoring program was up and running then, I could have had monitors on them, okay? So theoretically, 14 out of that 30, all right? Out of that 14, 8 of those offenses happened after 6 o'clock at night. So they should have been home and it never would have happened, 8 of them, all right? But if all 14 of the 30 who could have had a monitor on them did commit that offense, we would have known immediately who they were, what they did, and countless hours of investigation time would have been not happened. And a lot of those, some of those are open. We would know who did them. Next slide for me. All right, so I have met with all the local judges. They're going to be involved in this bond court, circuit court, and everybody's on board. We're just like a third-party vendor, just like one of the bonding companies, okay? So we're not getting any special treatment. We had some meetings. The judge Hazelton put together some meetings with some defense attorneys, so they could help kind of. They beat me up, is what they did. So, but what it does, we were able to look at everything from everybody's side of the fence And we were able to make some changes on my side. I got some input from their side. And, collectively with the defense attorney, nobody's usually going to be happy with this, but I mean, they were happy that we reached out, that, they were included in the discussion about it, and some changes were made on their behalf. So again, violent people, only people we're targeting in this. Violent crimes is a problem all over. And when I had to go to council for this, it had to be on YouTube and whatnot, because we had to get approval to sign a contract. So as soon as that happened, that it was publicly out, and I had to do a couple of interviews. Well, I have had 5 or 6 police departments reach out, wanting me to come there to do presentations on what we're doing, and we haven't even gotten started yet. I've had 2 state senators call me, want to know if we need any money. I'm supposed to go to the city of Columbia possibly next week to give a presentation on all this. Folks are starved for innovative ways to deal with violent crime, and the court systems they have issues right now, major issues, and there are entities that are working on that, including people at the police department here. This is not like the fix for all that. Okay, this is a finger in a dam. You know what I mean? But it's something. It's different. We're going to try, and it will have measurable positive impacts. Having the right people, on lockdown. They still have the ability to work. They still have the ability to see family. It's just going to bring them some structure out of jail, and that's what we want. That's kind of, I can talk about it all day, but I'm going to stop right there. I think I've gone long enough.
Yes, Councilman.
So a couple of questions I have for you. You're working with the judiciary, you're being seen as a vendor. You're in a different position than most vendors because the judiciary has authority over you. How do you keep judges from hijacking this program and saying, I'm just going to put everybody I want on there. I'm going to wear the police department, your bond, you're going to be ankle monitored. Now you're having to absorb. What's the safeguard from them doing that to you guys?
So because we're funding it and we're using staff, office space, dollars to pay for the monitors each month, the judges will want to do that. And we've had hard conversations about it, but we're not the only monitoring company out there. The bondsmen have the ability to still use them, but the problem is there's huge accountability problems with the bondsmen. Once we start doing this, it's going to be really obvious that this is how it should be done, at least the accountability portion. So I've talked to most of the judges, explained to them, if you want to put somebody on this, it has to fit our criteria, and we can tell you no. And that's going to be a hard bridge to cross, but we're paying for it. If the guy's not causing problems in the city of Charleston, then we absolutely shouldn't be paying any money for to monitor somebody who's not. So that's how we're going to handle that.
What's your time frame for starting?
Well, I wanted to be up last month,
Mm-hmm.
but we're having weekly calls. I had one today. We're completely trending in the right direction, and I'm hoping 30 with probably 45 days.
What's pending, the funding or the approval?
No, so the crime scene correlation piece, they're doing a literal special build for us on that. That is normally used. They run that like a once a week program, and when I first got into this, I was just under the impression it was more of a real time. And so they wouldn't build anything, change anything until we had a signed contract. And that took 9 months. And so we got a signed contract in May, and they're like, okay, we're gonna build this out. But if you know anything about dealing with tech vendors, it's not super quick. So yeah, but they're really excited. I've had they've had other police departments contact them. But like I said, they're the biggest in the country as far as electronic monitors. South Carolina probation, juvenile justice, and the whole federal government uses the same electronic monitor.
Have you all piloted this locally?
So
Have
again,
you started with 3 or 4 just to get a test case scenario to be able to present? Have you done any pilot, or you're going from 0 to full implementation?
so we are absolutely starting out small. We're going to go with one person on for a couple weeks then 2 or 3, and then 4 or 5. How we hopefully see this is would like to be up to 20 by the end of the year. What we want is some data back. Is it working? Is it successful? And with 1 or 2, you're not going to get the data you want really back from it. So this is the monitor, and one of the kind of better things about this product is, with most regular monitors, it's got to be charged every night, and if you got to lay by an outlet with your leg stuck to like an outlet. Okay, this one you don't. This has a portable battery which goes on a charger, and when you get home, you snap it on there, and you can just walk around for hours and hours. You can leave the house with the battery on it. They're still going to show where you are, so it's a little more convenient. I know the offender won't think so, but it really is.
Jerry, do you have a question?
And let me just comment on Paul's question. The whole platform is a pilot program. So this is not something that has been etched in stone. To his point, we also trying to collect the data from it to see if it is something that we have to add resources, more funding for him to get the platform jump started to its full capacity. But everything that we're doing right now with this program is the pilot.
But he answered it, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to see 1 or 2 people, so you get your own internal policies and procedures worked out before you dump 20 or 30 people on it
Absolutely.
all at once, and you find out, oh, wait a minute, we've got gaps in our procedures. Yeah, because there's training involved, there's a lot involved. So good.
And Jerry's got his hand up. Jerry?
Yeah, I was going to raise a question about which existing policy or procedure that this particular pilot fit into, or whether or not there will be, as the pilot evolves, a policy and procedure put in place and communicated to the public. I want to make the observation that this presentation was made to the policy subcommittee. I did have the opportunity to speak to the lieutenant after that presentation, and it's really good to hear the number of entities that he's been cooperating with and consulting with in this regard. And I'm hoping that as the pilot moves forward, there'll be an opportunity to come back to CPAC and present data in terms of lessons learned and the implications for public safety. But thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you, Jerry, for sharing that. That's why I was saying I was at the meeting when you presented, and I thought this was really good to share with CPAC. And hopefully this presentation could be shared maybe at one of the communications, the outreach. I know September 20th is already set, but maybe the next one.
Like this, and I think by then you'll have some data to say, here's even in your pilot, in your entry level, the good, the bad, because there's going to be both, right? And you're going, everything in this life, you're gonna have to tweak it.
Absolutely.
I think coming to the meeting saying, okay, we've now put this in place for 2 months, 3 months. We've made some tweaks. We've done this because nobody, it's never a good idea to go into it and say, yeah, we knew we were going to be perfect from the outset. It's going to admit straight up, we had changes to make. People want to hear that because it makes you human. And we say, okay, we get it. So I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, I like that. That was some of our better presentation.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. When he presented at the Policy and Procedures Committee, it was the same thing because it's so informative and it's showing our proactivity too. Somebody else says, Doris, Councilwoman Grant.
Yes, thank you, Lieutenant King, for that presentation. Sound like you've done some work since you presented it earlier. Question, are there any guidelines? Have you all started with putting guidelines in place as to how, what circumstances the monitors would be used for?
We have draft policy and procedures that are still under command review. But that will be firmed up before it goes on the very first ankle. Legal has looked at them, and we seem on solid ground there. But to the point, it's not completely finished, but we're very close.
Right.
And it's a separate, to Jerry's point, it's a separate policy than anything else. It's not being tweaked in anything else.
Okay, yeah, because Paul brought up a point as, regarding, judges maybe wanted to use it excessively, and if you have the capacity to do that. And just was curious as to, what was in place because I know you probably can't use it for everyone, but what are the circumstances that or situations you'll be using them for?
Well, like I said, my staff in the morning, they'll come in, they'll go through all the arrests. And if somebody has some gun charges, or they'll start looking at everybody. If a guy's out on bond for some violent previous charges, and he's got more violent charges, he's going to be somebody we immediately look at. And we'll just start looking into his background, his history, that document, the CPRA I was telling you about. And, we'll somebody probably like that, we will go ask the judge if we can put a monitor on him.
Okay.
So I would imagine you're going to have, along those lines, with the judicial discretion, you would have as almost like a vendor. Bail bondsman doesn't have to agree to put anybody on an ankle monitor they don't want to. They're going to say, no, we're not taking that risk. In this case, where you'll have the same ability that the judge says, I want an ankle monitor on him, you have the review. It doesn't meet our criteria. I'm sorry, Judge, we can't accept him into that program.
Right, and we will be limited by the number of monitors that I have. So we're paying, I didn't bring up the cost, but it's $97 a month per offender. So I think it was going to be, I think right around, don't quote me exactly, it was from June to the end of the year with about 20 on was going to be right around like $16,000. And $16,000 is a lot of money. But to have your 20 or 40, because that's going to over 4 months, and now you have a different crop could be coming through, to have your most violent folks in the city, accounted for, $16,000 isn't a lot of money in that aspect. Now there's staff attributed to it and all that. I have repurposed a couple of patrolmen, my own office space.
You're not counting labor to that cost.
Right. So I've repurposed a couple, and I said I applied for a grant with the DOJ's innovations grant. And again, this isn't something that really anybody's doing. Electronic monitoring is prevalent everywhere, but it's not necessarily used in this capacity. Some people have said, well, it's a violent crime monitoring program. Okay, if that's what you want to call it, that's what it is. I mean, if you try to make it not sound good, then okay, that's fine. But if that's what it is, that's what it is. But we're using electronic monitoring to target the right folks that need to be held accountable.
I'm going to say from
Hold on 1 minute though. Let me make sure Doris was finished because we kind of jumped in. So Councilwoman Grant, were you?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because your hand was still up too. So I wondered if cut you off.
No, thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, I think in the branding, don't hide from the fact that it's a violent offender program. Because when a common person like me thinks of ankle monitoring, I think it could be a shoplifter who's got confined to their home. So the more you promote the branding of this as a violent offender monitoring program, the community buy-in will be you'll cross a lot of bridges pretty quick because everybody can agree with that one. But if you use a traditional ankle monitoring, the guy from, he was shoplifting, they threw him on a monitor. It's like, that's kind of a waste.
During the defense side, the questions I had, that was one of the worries that we were going to not do what we say and transition to that. And I mean, the chief of police is the chief of police, but when I proposed this, and this was the direction we were going to go in, and the chief has never said a word to me that we were going to do anything different. So, I think this is who needs it, and it's purposeful and it's thoughtful, and that's how we're going to keep it.
We would like you, I know we'd like you to come back and speak with us after it actually gets into play.
Sure.
And I'm sure that Paul is going to take into consideration the next run of the presentations for online, for folks to be able to come back to and reflect back on the presentation. This really is a good one. Really appreciate your time.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, the next item on our under updates is community engagement by Captain McFadden.
Can I interrupt?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can I jump in? I want to give you an update. I got a hard stop.
Oh, okay, sure. Yes, sir.
And you had a couple questions, a couple follow-ups, like procedural justice director.
Right.
So that person will be starting September 19th.
Okay.
So it has been a selection. There'll be more to come, formal inductions, the whole 9 yards and everything
Okay.
else. That's September 19th. Her name is Miss Jill Edison. Update on the third-party assessment. I know Jerry brought that up. Scope of work has been approved and it's been submitted to our procurement department with that. So we're still waiting on the RFP. Selection committee also has been approved. So the only pending item with that is the selection criteria, which does not impact the bid process. So we're on the final selection phase for that third-party assessment. But I think those are the two items that
Right.
getting brought up. So
Right.
I at least want to.
Thank you. That's good. Thank you. Now, the RFP, you said, so it looks like there won't be any holdups on that,
No.
right? So what's your deadline? You're expected?
That's all with the city.
Okay.
That's all. It's in their hands. As soon as they get that through the selection process, we can press forward with the selection.
Okay. 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 Sounds good. Any questions for Deputy Chief Walker regarding the hiring of the facilitator and third-party oversight?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
Deputy Chief, is it possible for us to see the scope of service that's under review?
Get with
The
Corey.
assessment?
Yeah, I get with Corey Taylor with that. So we can get that submitted, Jerry.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Deputy Chief Walker? Okay, sounds good. Thank you so very much. Really appreciate it. Okay, and now Captain McFadden. That was a wonderful, very well attended, I think, National Night Out on the east side. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Got me a chance to see some folks that I'd gone to school with years gone. So that was good, but I thought the attendance was really good. And then for the Deputy Attorney General to come and take time to spend and see what was going on. I thought that was a big ticket item.
It was, yeah, she was, we were notified, I guess, last week that she was gonna come. But so the East Side community actually sponsored us for National Night Out. And so then we also had Serve and Connect there, which I was telling you earlier, helped fund a lot of the food and the drinks. And then Pedals for Peanuts, obviously they donate bikes every year. So we had they gave us about 100 this year. So that was some of that crop. But we tend to give those out at usually many are major events. So we still have some bikes left to give out for the remainder of the year. So that was about probably 200, 300 people. So no, we had a really good time with that. Next week, you jumped a little ahead, but that brought me to next week. We have the River Dogs they're also hosting us for National Night Out next Tuesday. I think I sent out that flyer as well. So that's going to be, we'll have a lot of static displays, but then we'll also have the dunk tank with some police officers in the dunk tank. And our very own Master Police Officer Trent Weathers will be throwing out the first pitch. He played at the Citadel. And he actually works in my housing unit. So if you guys can make it, please come on out to that. I only have one slide, so not as fancy as Heath over here. But if you'll notice in that picture, so that's actually from our Spring of Citizens Academy, our special ops day. So instead of doing static displays and presentations, we actually moved to kind of an active day. And this first picture is our response to an active shooter in a school. And if you notice on the right of the screen, you'll see Eduardo
Curry,
curiously leaning over and mesmerized, but that was our officers responding to an active shooter. And then our Citizens Academy participants, we kind of staged them so they could see what our response is. But so going to our community centers, the Gathering Center over in Gaston Green, we're still working with the Low Country Youth Services. That was a year-long contract. So they're still coming twice a month, and we're doing sports days. And I think we just did a community cleanup as well. And a lot of their discussions are around role models and then interaction with police. And we do a lot of round kind of discussions with some of the youth in Gadsden Green. So over the summer, we did partner with Mitchell Elementary, and we had a family summer cookout at the Gathering Center and then kind of in the middle square over in Gadsden Green. So I did pull the recent violent crime statistics. So in the year since opening the center, which would have, so from July of 2021 to July of 2022, we've had a 38% reduction in violent crime. And then it's just going prior to opening, the year prior to opening the center, 67% of the violent crime incidents involved a firearm. The year following opening the center, only 41% of violent crime incidents involved a firearm. So we'll keep on measuring that, and hopefully our interaction there will continue to progress with the reduction of violent crime. The multi-purpose learning center in Robert Mills, we did do the youth chess club that ended right before summer. And actually, they've just kind of been engaging with those the youth that live over there throughout the summer, but they did one of my officers, Officer Smith, she planned, worked with Carowinds, planned a trip for the youth in Robert Mills Manor, and on Monday they all went to Carowinds, and none of the kids had there, so they actually had a blast over there. And moving on, the partnership project. So with Coastal Crisis Chaplaincy, our goal this year was quarterly to do a community event. And this one went a little bit later into July. We were aiming for June, but just for planning purposes, it went to July. So we partnered with YAP, which is Youth Advocacy Program. And basically they're on a 3-year grant with MUSC for violence interruption and intervention. And so we've actually met with them. We actually had them here for one of our monthly Stat 360s, and they presented to all the commanders. So we partnered with them and Coastal Crisis Chaplaincy for a town hall with the Johnson Street community. So we started out with a neighborhood walk to pass out flyers, notifying of that town hall. And then I think it was 2 Mondays ago, we actually did the town hall with YAP and our community outreach officers. We had a very good showing there. And the majority of the complaints were they want to see more police. So we're going to work obviously with our housing and Team 1 officers and maybe do some roll calls out there and be a little bit more engaging in that community. So that actually went very well. And we're also planning for our next quarter for the partnership project. I'm probably going to look at maybe some crime statistics or maybe some communities where we need to get in there a little bit more. And then I'll get back to you guys on which community we choose. So just some notable outreach. Obviously, we had gun violence awareness, partnered with MUSC for Turning the Tide Violence Intervention. I already mentioned YAP, which is on a grant with them as well. So that was in June. We have partnered with Homes for Hopes and Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And we've actually been building some furniture with these 501c3s and actually building it. We built a couple beds in some apartments in Bridgeview. So anytime we identify families in need, either our officers will email us if they encounter something, especially in the middle of the night, or if other city entities notify us, we'll partner with these nonprofits to get them some furniture, clothes, or whatever they need. We partnered with Better Health and had a wellness day over in Bridgeview as well. And then the Cannon Street All-Stars, actually some of them came into town, did some book signing, and we helped them with a baseball clinic and some of their events that they did. We're still continuing with our ALICE training with our businesses, which the active shooter training. We still have requests that come in through email. Officer Millette, actually, he's the one that heads that up. And then doing some senior citizen outreach events, talk to them about crime prevention and hurricane response. We did a neighborhood cookout in Ashley Oaks on July 4th. And we have recently partnered with Fleet Feet. Actually, they were at Eastside National Night Out. And that was the second time we partnered with them a couple of weeks ago, but they've been showing up and giving away some really good looking shoes, actually. So that's a good partnership for us. And then moving on to our youth engagement. So the summer basketball, so that had not occurred since pre-COVID. And so this year, Coach Flip, he works for the city as well. He was the new organizer coach. That actually ends August 13th. But Lens actually helped fund that basketball program. And then we've been participating in attending those basketball events as well. So that's been pretty successful. Camp Hope, that's the finale was last week. Had 75 kids. Of course, that was staffed primarily by our SROs. And then our outreach officers primarily staffed the evening camp. But I know we put a lot of that on social media in terms of planning and staffing. In our first year, I've done it. The first year, our new Lieutenant Harrison, the school commander, did it since we weren't there pre-COVID. But it was very successful. We learned a lot of things. So we're already planning for next year in terms of transportation funding. So that was very successful for those kids. Our outreach officers, they've coordinated 2 baseball clinics this summer. And then we partnered with the city golf course and our community centers, the youth from those centers, we actually took them over to the golf course for some golf clinics. And we hope to expand on that and hopefully look at maybe some different programs that the municipal golf course could provide. And I think that's pretty much it. Just upcoming again, National Night Out hosting us by the River Dog is hosting us. Our community center back to school events, I believe one's next Thursday and next Saturday. Those are in the flyers as well. Those are going to be fun. Those are always a good time. Our Fall Police Citizens Academy, we just put that up on social media. Looking to do kind of the same structure we did in the spring, which was very successful. And then Hispanic Heritage Month begins September 15th. So we'll be planning for that. And then some of our Halloween, Faith and Blue weekend and our holiday events coming up as well. I think that's all the updates that I have.
And with the community centers, do the kids sign in when they come so that I know you had a way to measure the reduction in crime, but how about the number?
The officers, we were primarily tracking the kids. The officers were tracking who was showing up. I think they still do. We usually track the number of kids and maybe by name, and they track them in our one of our modules, just so we know who's there to keep track of kids.
Feedback I heard about the police academy is those of us that were in the group before, we got cheated because this recent session. There, all I heard, I mean, Eduardo Curry stopped me, and that's the first thing out of his mouth.
So I'll say that obviously that was the first one I did ever. So we did move and make some changes from that. So
we were the practice group.
What I'll say,
I missed some good stuff.
but what I'll offer you is if you guys want to, I know Special Ops Day was like a big hit, and it's really needed for our citizens to kind of understand some of these operations that we do. But I can certainly extend the invite to you guys to attend.
No, I want you to know the feedback, we gave you some pretty honest feedback when we were done.
Yeah.
I know I was pretty honest in mine,
Yeah.
and whatever it was, you guys took that, you turned it around.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was trying to get you guys to put he runs after school programs. He's like, I got to put my kids through this.
We have talked about that. I just kind of have to, and I'm interested in doing a youth one. I just kind of have to figure out the frame and what would be most appropriate for them.
Right. The other thing that I know on community outreach is Deputy Chief Walker met with the new Citadel basketball coach to build a plan to get those players to come out to like the basketball days and start being involved in more of a big brother, little brother program type program. And I know, he won't brag on himself, but he's working with the coach directly, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I know if Eduardo, if Councilman Curry were here, he would be talking about that. He did share that wanting to have the youth to get involved in the training as well, which I think would be an excellent idea. So if you're able to do that, because that would help, I think, also with cutting down on the stuff too, so. Yeah, thank you. Great report. And thanks for all you all are doing too.
Thank you. Thank you
That
guys for
really,
coming.
the community engagement is really. Now with the general orders update and schedule for future reviews, what we mean by that is just looking at maybe if there's a schedule, since we're trying to involve the entire council. Right now, there's one that we're reviewing and comments are due, council members' comments are due by Monday, August the 8th. So please make sure that you get your comments back, even negative replies are appreciated to Captain Quatella. And I know he's not here tonight, but Captain McFadden, if we could get maybe a schedule of which ones, you know, so that we can have the title and the dates that those are coming up. And then at the next meeting, maybe get an update on the comments received from GO5 and the one that we're currently reviewing. 17. And for topics for the next meeting, you know, we'll have community engagement. If anything is, if there's a burning desire for something else to be discussed.
If they've onboarded the justice, I don't know, I forgot the whole.
Should be, because it's in September.
I think
So we can have an introduction. Okay. Any other? Any other items you could think of? Hopefully we'll have some, I don't know how quickly city council members will be able to respond, but hopefully we'll have some replacements at that time.
Those gaps for a while. And it's, what it's doing is it's killing our, and let them know if you would, it's killing our not being able to have a quorum. And so that looks terrible to the public, not just us participating, but to the public. And it's a reflection that, you know, is there really a priority on this? So we really want to get it staffed up so we can not be in an empty room.
Thank you. And again, if you have if any ideas pop out to you between now and after you've had attended your subcommittee meeting, please make sure to email me. And we can pull that item out. Again, Captain McFadden, Lieutenant King, and I know Deputy Chief Walker had to step out, and Captain Thompson is on. And Mr. Rumelin, thank you so very much for the time that you take with us. Thank you for the information shared tonight. And we look forward to seeing everyone in October. We'll have that advertised appropriately. So with that said, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so very much for coming. Take care and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Drive yourself or your mother?
Speaking.
Yeah, make sure you get your parking ticket.
Yeah.